I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized. Training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Hope and Health. I'm Mathew Embry, and today we're talking to the inspirational Angie Gensler, who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2004 and is now a competitive bodybuilder. Angela, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible story.
Thank you for having me, Matthew.
Now, Angela, you have been outspoken online in several ways, sharing your story with multiple sclerosis. But for the person who's never heard of you or hasn't seen all of the amazing content that you put out there, bring us back to the day you were diagnosed.
Wow. So going back, it'll be 22 years this Christmas. It was Christmas Eve of 2004. My children were 4 and 6 years old. And the weeks leading up to Christmas, I was suffering with numbness, fatigue, where I just couldn't get out of bed. I was having optic lights. I was having a lot of struggles. And I was sort of familiar with multiple sclerosis because I have an older sister who has MS. And I received a phone call, like I said, Christmas Eve from the doctor, and they said, your MRI lit up like a Christmas tree. You have multiple sclerosis.
Wow. So, I mean, that must have been a shock to get on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Before that happened, did these symptoms come on suddenly? And when they did, what was the first thing that came to mind?
To backtrack a little, in my 20s, I was misdiagnosed with Lyme's disease. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks having same neurological issues that I have with MS. And I think I was misdiagnosed back then. On hot days, I would lose function of my legs. I would drop things. I would have blurred vision. And that would come on and off through the years. But the time with the actual diagnosis, it was really profound because I wasn't able to take care of my children at the time.
That is not an uncommon story where someone has symptoms that can go decades back before they get that diagnosis. So when you did get the diagnosis, was there a little bit of relief or was it just dread?
I would say a combination of both, because I did have a bird's eye view of the disease from seeing family members with it. So it was terrifying, being a young mom with the children. But I always sought help from a holistic chiropractor for my self-care, years when I was in my 20s because I did a laborious job. And when I went to see her, I broke down and was like, I have MS. And she goes, well, let's start implementing some things that she, some practices that she was doing with Atlas adjustment and, just giving me little pointers on, to remove aspartame and the artificial sweeteners that I was living on. So relief, but then a lot of pressure from the doctors. It was immediate that they were like, you need to get on a medication right away and you'll be in a wheelchair in a couple of years. So you have a little hope from one person, but a lot of fear from the doctors. So
to be clear, you're diagnosed and right away your neurologist and your doctors want to put you on MS medications.
Immediately. It was almost like they didn't want to give me a choice. It was, you need to do this. And I simply said, give me some time. And I got phone calls from the nurses and I just kept asking for time, and years just added up and I never committed to a DMT. And I was dropped by a couple of doctors along the way because I wouldn't commit to a DMT.
So doctors dropped you as a patient because you wouldn't take MS drugs.
Yes, the exact quote that I received on Mother's Day post car accident, where I was really pressured for a new medication, was, "I will no longer waste my office hours with you. Call me when you have your next relapse."
Wow. How'd that feel?
I hung up the phone and it actually made me grind my feet deeper into the ground with my determination not to get on the medication, because I almost felt there was a desperation from her for me not get, for being, I wouldn't even say defiant. She just didn't align with or hear what I was saying, how I was taking care of myself. There was no support.
You're diagnosed and then you're given a number of drugs to choose from. Is that how it works?
Yes. Yeah. I was given 3 different types of medications. They gave me beautiful booklets and free pens and koozies. And their representative, the nurse, was going to call to go over my options. And like I said, I just kept putting them off. And, here we are 22 years later, and it's not an option.
So why did you decide not to use the MS drugs? Why were you cautious about it?
So, like I said, I have an older sister who was diagnosed with MS 5 years before me. And I watched her do these intramuscular injections that looked painful. And then I would see the bottles of pills she would have to take to counteract the side effects of the medication. And she, it would be a couple of weeks, and then she'd maybe have like a week of feeling okay. And then they would have that gap of medication, and then again, getting back on that cycle. And I just thought to myself, after my first relapse and I recovered, I'm like, well, if I recover at 98%, I'd rather take my chances on functioning at 98% than going through this cycle of taking a pill, then taking an injection, then having to take all these other medications to counteract the side effects when there was no true cure. And I realized that healing doesn't always include a cure. And that's where I just, I started out. I lacked the support. I lacked true knowledge, and I did what I could for the first 14 years.
So in that journey, you had a chiropractor that you were working with prior to this MS diagnosis. And all of a sudden they start giving you some options, some strategies to help control the disease. You decided to go that way. And what were those key strategies that they recommended to you? And why did you trust it?
So I've been seeing this doctor for years, and she took out a big book and photocopied an anti-inflammatory diet, which I still have that piece of paper somewhere in storage, and I could pull it out and put it side by side with Best Bet diet. And it is so the same. So she printed it out and said, you know what? Give yourself a couple of weeks. Follow this. Get rid of all the artificial sweeteners. I was pumped full of artificial sweeteners my entire life. My father was a diabetic. My parents thought they were doing the right thing by giving us these pink packets and getting all the sugar-free stuff when it became available in the 80s and 90s, and once I cleared out all the artificial sweeteners, all of a sudden my clarity became better. Once I started to take out heavy, heavy gluten, I had less fatigue. So I'm like, there has to be something to this. And then when I would stray from it because I lacked that discipline because I had, young kids, and, I had pizza night, and occasionally I'd be like, all right, I'll have it. But then I would, feel like junk for days or weeks following, and it was really the lack of true knowledge and giving myself enough time to see the discipline, all the little positive choices compound over time. I would always give up, I think, before that true change would happen. I lacked true consistency. When I was good, I felt good. But then when I would fall off, I would have a relapse. I would have exasperations, annoyances. Um, but I still felt hope because I was watching, a family member really struggle with side effects of the medications and switching off of one and going to the other. And, it just didn't align with how I felt inside, you know? I almost felt like MS became my catalyst for, self-improvement and self-empowerment through my daily choices. But I didn't truly get that until I watched your movie after a car accident. So that's when things really changed. That's when things really changed.
So before we get into like when you really tighten things up with your lifestyle and approach to life, how did your family respond to when you wanted to change your diet? How did your doctor respond? I mean, this is a big change. You're a mother of two young kids. What was that like?
Well, the doctors didn't really agree with me. There was no support. My family, my husband was like, whatever you want to do, however you want to approach this, I trust that you will make the right decision for yourself, because I never wanted to not be that full on mom and, wife and business owner. I, had demands. So I was completely supported. And thank God, my husband, worked so diligently and hard to support all the other modalities that insurance didn't cover, because it's expensive to be healthy. It back then it was, I would buy bottles of different supplements with all these promises. I'm like, oh my God, brain health. Oh my God. And I thought, and I had cabinets full of stuff, so I was chasing a lot of things that, people were offering at the time. And then I realized that, everyone just really wants to make money off of you. I just felt like I was a dollar sign.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with MS is it's a big money disease, so to speak. Patients are worth a lot of money, especially in today's world with all the different types of things that, people are selling different types of cures and all this kind of stuff. You got to be very cautious as an MS patient out there in the world. So let's get back to your story. So you've changed your diet, but then you have a car accident, and then something else happens that starts to change the trajectory. What goes on?
Yeah. So my father passed away of Alzheimer's, and caring for him was highly, highly stressful. Um, and then a couple of months after he passed, I was rear-ended at highway speed, and my head hit the steering wheel, and I lost a little consciousness for a little bit. And at 45 years old, I'm in an ambulance for the first time. So it was almost a year and a half recovery. Every day taking Ubers to, I couldn't drive, taking Ubers for vestibular therapy, for um, every kind of therapy you could think of, OT, PT. They said I would never bicycle again. Then they put me in an MRI tube, and this is when my neurologist said, okay, there's a new drug. We want to get you on it. It starts with an O. It's just was approved. And I'm like, look, I'm not putting anything in my body while my brain is swollen. Like, this is not MS. This is, so the MRI showed no new lesions. So I said, see, it's not MS. And she goes, no, just because there aren't new lesions doesn't mean it's not progressing. I said, I understand that sentiment. I said, but if I was on medication and you gave me these results, you say, look, the medication's working. And with that, she closed her book and said, I will no longer waste my office hours with you. Good luck. And I got home. I wasn't able to watch TV, minimal. It was a year of a lot of deep struggle, and I put on a lot of weight, and the first time I was able to watch TV or turn on a computer, I see a post from you. I don't remember where or how, but I watched the movie, and I realized at that very moment that I lacked I lacked the knowledge, I lacked the support, and I lacked the true discipline that I deserved, that the family. I can't serve from an empty cup. And I realized that I needed to just start with one choice. And that's what happened. And then I reached out to a gentleman in your movie, David Lyons, and was like, asked him about training. And it just started, compounding over time.
So for people who don't know the movie that Angela's referring to, it's Living Proof and can be found on mshope.com, which came out, it almost came out 6 or 7 years ago now, actually almost a decade ago now. And I'm always curious in people's light switch moment, because I've met so many people on my journey who suddenly one day they're going to change their life and go in a different way, take total control, realize their dreams, pursue optimal health. What was that light switch moment like for you? Was it sudden? And when it did happen, did you just start cleaning out the cupboards and
Yeah,
re-looking at your life? Or was it just one decision that you made and just went after it?
it was. So I had lost my eyesight, and I promised myself if I got my eyesight back after that, I would never miss a sunrise. And I've been blessed to live near the water, and I walked to the sunrise every day after that. And after this car accident, I said, if I just recover a little bit, I'll never be second place in my life. I'm going to start choosing what will help improve my life. And it just started from there. And I pulled out what my doctor had given me, and I said, it's not an option anymore. I'm not an option anymore. And that's what it was. And one choice just started to one choice, one rep, one no to people, one yes to me. And then the no's became easier because the yeses became more powerful. And as I started feeling better and the more hope that I was like infused in me, it made me dream bigger. It made me like just show up in my life differently. I became a better mom. I became a better wife. I became a better, partner in the business. And I became huge, within my community. I was able to, serve others. And the whole aspect of shame or worry about people misunderstanding me, it was gone. And then COVID hit, and that actually was super positive for me because anytime I was ever stuck in my house, I was always sick. And this time I was feeling good. And I started running in the neighborhood. I bought workout equipment on Marketplace and put it in my attic and created this gym and was reading books, and then, got certified as a personal trainer. And it's just, you just start dreaming bigger and bigger, and you're not all your self-imposed limitations or the ones that doctors or other people try to put on you, they don't exist anymore.
You start to build your own reality.
Yeah. Yes.
And one thing I try to share with people, especially when they're coming out of health or a chronic illness, is that they have to become the center of their lives. And although that may sound selfish, it actually isn't. Because from my perspective, if you work on you, you become the best version of yourself. You're actually helping all those around you. When you're not the best version of yourself, I don't know what the impacts are for the rest of the world around you. What do you think about that?
Oh, 110%. Oh my gosh. Yes, because you show up differently. You show up differently, and you serve people differently. It's almost like a veil is lifted, and people are like, oh, but don't you feel restrictive on a diet? Don't you feel like you're left out? And I'm like, no, I actually feel empowered because it was restrictive when I couldn't teach my daughter how to drive because I couldn't see. It was restrictive when I'd wave to my family as they drove off out to dinner without me because I couldn't function.
So Angela, you start this program, you've changed your nutrition, you've changed the way you work out, you've changed the way you think about yourself and reality. What starts to happen to your MS symptoms?
They are not even an option. They're not even, they're, I don't want to say, they're just They're behind me. I'm not carrying them forward with me. And it felt great. And don't get me wrong, high stress situations, I'm affected by super cold weather, but I see them now as my body as signals. Slow down, warm up, don't eat that. I see them as signals. And then I know what to do. I pull out my toolbox.
One thing about your journey I find super interesting is you took things to the next level. So you watched Living Proof, the movie, you started to make your own lifestyle changes, but then you reached out to other people in the movie. You reached out to David Lyons, another person, who I have a great deal of respect for and a journey we share. Tell me about that connection and what did that bring you into? What did that start to involve you in the MS community?
So I reached out to David. I Googled him and then I found his charity. And I reached out to him, had a great conversation. I joined his support group, MS Fitness Challenge support group on Facebook. And I did the 8-week challenge that he had available at the time for free. And I started to show up. I think 6 months, I would just sit and look at all these people, their successes of working out and their nutrition. I'm like, wow, I want to be them one day, and I quietly scrolled while I was doing my own thing, and then I started learning true weight training and training methods. And I did the 8-week challenge, felt great, felt stronger. And I was like, wow, what I've been doing really hasn't been working for me. It was actually setting me back. I would get overheated or just overwork my nervous system. And I, again, within this group, I started to post. And within that group, then I started connecting with people. And then I decided to open up an Instagram and change the name to Angie MS Strength to, say, change what MS meant for me, my strength. So anyway, when I'm speaking to David, he saw that discipline within me, and he's like, encouraged me, why don't you go get certified as a trainer? I was like, I'm going to do it. And COVID hit, I couldn't go to class. So I, read my books, but as soon as COVID was over, boom, I went and got certified. Then I went for an additional certification as an MS fitness specialist, learning the training methods. Became a coach for Optimal Body, became a coach with MS Fitness Challenge. It has taken me to Palm Springs where I train people, 50 people from around the country, which was incredible. I participated in a virtual training camp, which was incredible. And it just to be, using your words, living proof of what discipline and training and feeding your body, not at just the nutrition, but also what you feed your body, what you listen to, what you read, who you spend time with. All those things are either going to lift you or they're gonna keep you down. And it's been incredible. And then from there, I you know, I just want to keep leveling up. I just feel like the more stronger you get in your mind, your spirit, you feel unstoppable, and you dream bigger, and it allows you to dream bigger. And that's where I am right now.
An incredible journey for you, but what has it been like to watch others with MS around you? You've been part of the community, you've been sharing your message, you've been training people. What other miraculous things have you seen?
It has been incredible. I have forged friendships around the globe. Like, I could go through messages. I just got diagnosed. I share, yeah, mshope.com. Boom. Start here. Give yourself time. I always tell people, when you get that diagnosis, give yourself, wherever you live, live through the seasons, keep a journal, like, allow yourself to clean your palate. Try to remove that inflammation yourself before you jump on a drug. Just pause, reassess, because I feel like the diagnosis is your body's way of saying what you're doing is no longer working for you.
With the level of training that you are at right now, What are your next goals? You've already competed, and I believe it's called, correct me if I'm wrong, the NPC Masters 50 plus figure competitor nationally, and I'm assuming that's internationally. What are you training for next?
So November 11th of 2023, I competed regionally and I took first place. First time ever. Now, mind you, I I was told I would never ride a bicycle again. I would probably never be able to be balanced in heels. Okay. That, all these limitations were put on me. And so I found a coach, a local coach, and I said, these are the training methods that I've learned that I use. This is the diet that I follow. And my whole prep, even right now, is all best bet. It's hysterical because it is all anti-inflammatory and I feel amazing. So I compete in November and then in 2023, which was my first competition ever. And then I competed in July 2024 on the 4th of July, and I took fourth at nationals. However, I did back-to-back traveling following. My body was under a tremendous amount of stress because prep and you dehydrate. I had a really bad relapse and was hospitalized. So I lost the left use of my left leg, any kind of strength. And I went from being on stage to using a walker and a wheelchair for a little bit. And I said to myself, if I recover from this, I'm going to get back up on that stage and I want to get my IFBB Pro card. That is like you attain that and that's the highest level. And I've always wanted to compete and it eluded me for decades, Matthew, decades. But every time I have a setback, MS or non-MS related, it's almost like it fires my soul to want to recover, be grateful, and then continue to pursue. So last year, 2025, I had to rehab all of that summer and pretty much to Christmas of 24. And then I got clearance and strength to start training again. So I plan on competing again in June and then again in July because I have to now requalify because I lost a year.
Now, if we look back to the time where you had that relapse, and relapses are a big thing for most people with multiple sclerosis, are there any environmental triggers around there or things that changed up in your lifestyle that you think may have contributed to that?
Yes, 110%. So when I was 49, I had a hysterectomy. I had another setback. I had a hysterectomy because I had aggressive growing precancerous cells. So now here I am I competed at 51, 52. Post show, menopause hit like that. So it was dehydration. Post show, my nervous system was out of whack, plus menopause, and it was the perfect storm that led me to the hospital. So this past year, I sought out help for managing menopause because I was then again having eyesight issues. I was having massive fatigue. I was having cognitive decline, and everything was pointing to MS. But instead of me putting it in that box, I said, let me look at this. And when I did the blood work, I was completely flat on all of my hormones. So I started MRT, which is menopause replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy. And now at normal levels, I'm back to my normal self. But this past year, 2025, was very challenging getting that under wraps. And what happens is, MS affects 80 to 90% more women than men. And we all go through perimenopause. We all go through menopause. And the lack of knowledge and support is it's horrible. If I did not take control, I would still be where I was 4 months ago.
Now, do you feel that that's just all part of life? I mean, I think all of us in some way want to feel like as soon as we started a program or as soon as we think we have things right, it's just going to be up, 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 up. But in reality, we start to learn that life seems to be more like the ups and downs, and that our health is consistently being challenged and we need to reset.
I truly believe that there's ebbs and flow of life. I live near the water. The water comes in, the water goes out. There's some days where it's raging, there's some days when it's calm. And just knowing that it won't last, the good times, you embrace them. Knowing that the bad times don't last, you endure them. And it's just, it's life. You could be going along. I was going along thinking, oh my God, MS, MS, MS. Boom, I'm in a car accident. Going along life, MS, 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 focus on that, boom, hysterectomy. So it's like you can be doing everything right, but things happen.
I agree with you. I think it's ups and downs, and we're consistently hitting these peaks and valleys. But in those valleys, sometimes I think people need to know real world, pragmatic steps like, what am I going to do now? And for me, I found one here where I live, here in Calgary. We have this hill. And when I hit those lows, when things happen in my life, that it's called nose hill, that when I hit the bottom of something, so there's a big change, whether it's in my health, my personal life, or whatever, I simply make sure I climb that hill in the morning. I That's what I do. It's automatic. I get my backpack. I just go climb it to remind myself, okay, you're starting to climb again. You just got to get up this hill no matter what. If I just keep doing this, wake up every day, keep showing up, it's going to get better. But if I don't climb that hill that first day, I know I got a problem. Is there something there for you when you hit the bottom that gets you back into that mindset of, I've got control, I've got to keep climbing, I've got to keep pushing?
Yes, and it's water, it's nature. I go down to the water, and whether I sprint on the beach, whether I drop and do push-ups on the beach, whether I put my hands in the outgoing tide and put I call them worry rocks. And I was down there the other day and I throw the worry rock in. I put the worry on the rock, I throw it in, and I watch the water wash over it. It's visual. If I put my hands in the water, it's sensory, and witnessing the sunrise, because I think it's not just another day, it's one less day. That thought is, I want to do the most I can within these 24 hours because I know it's going to change, or I may not get another one. And maybe it's just because, hitting that midlife, age. I'll be 54 this year. It's it's when you're in that low or in that dark place. Like when I couldn't see, I listened to books that were inspiring. I listened to Mel Robbins. I listened to Brianna Wiest. I listened to podcasts. And, if you can't move, then eat cleaner. If it's pivoting what you can do for yourself, and just staying present in the moment, because you can't run from it, so you might as well just dive into it and know it's not going to last.
I completely agree. And I actually think this is a daily process. I think it's something that you have to be doing every single day, starting your day, refreshing the mind, getting things going in that direction. It's a constant reminder of the preciousness of life, and to maintain that gratitude and to put in the work to what it's going to take to have an optimal life. Now, do you feel that as well, that this is a daily commitment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who I am today truly is a testament to what is possible when you mix purpose with discipline, and just showing up for yourself, because then it's just everything else flows from there.
Now, you're turning 54 this year. How do you see the next 10 years? What are the next parts of your journey? And then I'm also going to weave something else in there. How has your family responded to this? Where have you seen them go? Where are they going with this?
So my little 4-year-old and 6-year-old are grown, beautiful women who are strong and compassionate and just amazing, giving people because of my diagnosis. And I have to say, and I'm going to get teary-eyed because when I was standing on stage up there posing and I hear my children screaming my name, Mom, go Angie. It was like everything, everything. And I know, like, when my daughters go, you taught me to never give up. You taught me that I can get through tough times, that none of us are immune to struggles in life. Some of them come in different forms. Some people struggle with monetary, some people struggle with illness, some people struggle with, I don't know, I can't, so many different things. But if we really see those struggles as a catalyst, we can really change our lives. And, like I said, being an inspiration to my kids was one thing, but to break open into a community worldwide has been such a blessing.
If someone's recently diagnosed, if you had to talk to someone who was recently diagnosed, what would your advice be? And how would you want their outlook to be on their disease?
Number one, mshope.com. Number two, msfitnesschallenge.org. And taking a pause, reassessing what led you up to your diagnosis. Did you have a severe other sickness? Did you have question, what were you eating? What are your stress levels? Like, assess yourself. Take a second, digest it for a second, but then look back. If you look at it as your body saying what you've been doing no longer is serving you well, then you go, okay, wait, I can change this or this or this. And then give yourself time. And I always say, live through it with the seasons, because some people struggle in the summer. Some people struggle in springtime when there's super high allergies. Some people like me struggle deeply in the winter months. I just say, just breathe, pause, and pivot towards the people who are showing you outcomes of what you want. Don't focus on the negative people. Focus on the people who are having positive outcomes, because that's where your energy is going to go. That is where your choices are going to go. And 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 if there's ever a time to be diagnosed, now is the time, because there are so many people living their truth. It's finding the people who are truly living it. Not the charlatans, but the people who are truly living it.
I couldn't agree more. I think when it comes to anything in life, whether it's multiple sclerosis or anything you want to achieve, first find the person who did it. Like, find the person who's already achieved where you want to go and try to reverse engineer how they got to where they got. And last question, what does hope and health mean to you today?
Regaining my health has filled me with so much hope for the future, but I take it one day at a time. I don't plan big, grand things for the future. I live each day out completely. The amazing thing about hope and becoming healthy and stronger, it invites you to dream bigger. When we had met, I was in a condo. I went from a big house to a condo because there was a part of me that was a little bit afraid of my future because of the health setback that I had, MS related. And now my husband and I are building our dream home on a beautiful piece of land near water. And it just allows you to dream bigger. It allows you to see life clearer. And what you focus on is where you will go.
Well, Angela, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And I also want to thank you for stepping up and sharing your message. You're an inspiration to me, and I know you're an inspiration to thousands around the world. You share your story on our website, mshope.com. And by being on our podcast, I know you're going to reach people and change their lives. Congratulations on taking control of your health, and I wish you the
Thank you.
absolute best for the decades of optimal health to come. Thanks for joining us. Hope and Health is made possible through generous donations. To learn more or support the show, visit mshope.com, where you'll find free science-based resources.